I'm thinking about my 7-year-old grandson that we have some really good conversations and some theological conversations. So if I were to try to explain to him, I would say conflict is where people don't agree, where people have different points of view, where people see things differently or have some sort of disagreement about the way something should happen. And unfortunately, I have experienced a little bit of that over the years. As we served overseas, we had the privilege of being on teams, and teams are a great way to work. But with teams, you have different opinions and different personalities, different gifts and talents. And so, as a team member, I experienced conflict. As a team leader, I experienced conflict. I think a couple things that I remember as far as when I made a mistake, um, and really it kind of falls in, well, maybe more than that, but I'm thinking of two kind of general areas. One where maybe I should have done something I didn't do, and the other times where maybe I did something but I did it either too quickly or in a way that I didn't bring in enough conversation or dialogue before that happened. And I think for me, and again, this is just me, but I think for me, one of the ways that I deal with that is if I've done something, that I ask for forgiveness. I would admit my mistake. And even sometimes, and this goes back to my father, my parents, I guess, when we were younger, my dad said, "Hey, look, it doesn't take a whole lot to admit that you're wrong, or even to admit, hey, if I upset you, I'm sorry." And so I think forgiveness and being able to ask for forgiveness is a good place to start. I think it is hard sometimes for people to admit they were wrong. It's hard even for some people to even ask for forgiveness because that culture, that dynamic, maybe has not been taught like it was, to us or folks that are a little older. I think another thing is, it used to be that you could agree to disagree. I mean, you have your opinion, I have my opinion. I respect you. Maybe I can love you. We can work this out together. But I think now, like if so many times people see something and if there's a conflict or if there's a difference of opinion, then you're wrong, and there is no room for forgiveness. And so I think as that's kind of evolved over the last couple of decades, that there does seem to be a sense of entitlement, that my opinion's important and your opinion's important. If you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, then I don't really care. And so I think that's been something that's I think social media has had a lot to do with that. Today, before, people had opinions, but they weren't. You didn't have to read about it every day. And then somebody makes you mad, and people react to that. And we all know that we can all react in a situation and say things that we don't really mean, or say it in a way that's more aggressive than we really meant for it to, or maybe even we just say something and it's heard differently from the way we thought. And so I think social media has had a lot to do with that quick to act and slow to forgive, or even slow to hear the other person. One of the things that I've learned, and not just with conflict, but probably any kind of problem solving, is unless that person is willing to talk about it, the one thing that I can do is just love them, encourage them, let them know I'm praying for them, and so try to continue to build that relationship to the point. But I've also found out, and this probably comes with getting a little bit older. I've always heard, as you get older, you get bolder. That you realize that time is of the essence, and so I would try to love that person and pray for that person and keep that relationship. But at the same time, I would say, hey, brother, because I love you, want to share this with you. I feel like you've retreated back into this. And if I did something to hurt you, or if somebody else did something to hurt you, let's see if we can get together. Let's talk about this. Let's see how we can mend those fences, or, really build back that trust that was there, tear down the walls, or whatever is needed. But so I would love them. I would pray for them, but I'd also try to, if I really love and care for them, I'm going to be honest with them. And so fairly quickly, I think probably 20 years ago, it would not be that quick that I would address the subject. But I think now I feel like, we want to make the most of every day. And so I would say, what's going on? Let's see how we can help to resolve this. But the bottom line is, if they're not willing, I would just kind of continue to push that, but let them make that decision. So. I think there probably are. I think there are probably very, very few. And I think, and it may be that this has been an ongoing thing. And for example, like the situation that I expressed earlier, if I talk to this person and but they don't receive it well, I might let it go for a while, and then I might hit it again. And then, uh, it's really, for me, it's really up for them to have some buy-in for that. And then there's probably other things, the old saying, make a mountain out of a molehill. I think there probably are some minor things that maybe with time, the person themselves will see. And so, yeah, I don't think that we have to attack every little scuffle or every little disagreement. But I would say that, I guess what I've learned is, and I was kind of like you were, when I was younger, I avoided conflict. I didn't like it when people didn't get it along. I wanted everybody to, sing Kumbaya and get together. But by the same token, I didn't want to stir that pot up. And sometimes you got to stir the pot to see, because a lot of times people are angry about something, but maybe, what's really on top is not what's on the bottom. And there's some hidden things that are down there that sometimes need to come out. So I guess to answer your question, there probably are some things that we don't have to deal with, but I think the truth is, at least in the church, I think there's a lot of things that we should be dealing with that we're not dealing with. So. I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think conflict has always been here. I think, and again, not to over spiritualize it, but I think we are sinful people. We have sinful desires, and pride gets in the way, even with ministers and missionaries and whatever our lot may be. But I think the world we live in, I don't remember a time where there was more division. I really don't remember a time. Maybe I was blinded, but again, I think it goes back to communications. I think, and I'm thankful for technology. I mean, I'm thankful that we can even do this interview this way, and my computer is not working by the internet, but I can still use my phone. I mean, there are multiple layers and ways that we can communicate, but yet there's so much communication overload. And you and I remember too, news used to be a news report, not a commentary, or not, they're sharing their opinion. And most news today, if we're honest, there is a slant, there's an opinion. They're they're pushing the story one way or another. And I think there's so much of that. I mean, I'm not very technological, but I have 6 or 7 apps that I get notifications on my phone. And many of them are news stories, or many of them, maybe not a news story, but it's somebody's opinion to a news story. And you either agree with that, or you disagree with that, or you laugh about it, or you get mad about it. And I think that happening so much during the day has also caused a lot of schisms that are going on. I mean, a lot of the separation, and I mean, even racial. We have the city that I live in is really, or work in here. is really about 40% African American, and only about 10% of our churches are African American or have African Americans in them. And so we don't look like our community. But if I sit down and talk with African Americans in the community, we have great conversations. We can accomplish great things. But if we just kind of communicate over the interwebs, as my friend says, we get in trouble that way. So I think, again, I'm not blaming it on media and internet, because I think that it is a great tool. But I just feel like sometimes there's an impersonalization of that communication has become impersonal. And sometimes we would prefer to send a tweet or a text instead of face-to-face conversations. Community is important, and it seems like, impersonal communities have become more important than the physical. And I know, with COVID going on right now, that there is a limitation to how we can gather, and I'm not speaking against that, but just in general, I mean, even pre-COVID, our world, I mean, so many people would rather send a text, and a lot of times when you get a text, you can't see the facial expression. You don't know if that is that a joke, is that sarcasm, is that person angry. I mean, you can use the same word and have a lot of feelings behind it, and so I think that just it's so funny. Again, ironic that communication's never been. We've never had as many different ways to communicate, but yet it seems like the skills of interpersonal communication somewhere have been diminished along the way. I think even today, with all the things that we've talked about, if I know a person's heart, and I have a relationship with them, and I really, I know their story, I know their story, and they say something that just doesn't make sense or offends me or whatever, I can that's softened because I have a relationship with them, and I want to. But if I don't know them, maybe I know them on a superficial, I guess, level, and I think that's maybe part of the problem is that's what we've done. We have a superficial level. How many friends do you have? Well, I have 5,000 friends. Well, how many of them do you talk with on a monthly basis? Well, maybe 3 of them. So we have all these acquaintances that somewhere along the way we knew, but yet we don't have that trust level with them. And so I think that I really do believe that conflict a lot of times comes because we don't know. One of the things that we did with the mission board was we taught worldview studies. And there was a guy actually from another mission agency that I really loved. And he taught that, your worldview is again, obviously how you see the world, but he said your worldview is your story and what you tell yourself about your story. So, it's what happened to you, but then it's how you react to that. And so, both my wife and I, both of us growing up, lost siblings. She lost a sister who died in a car wreck at 28. I had a brother who at 29 was shot and killed. We saw our mothers react to that same situation very differently. And so I feel like that if I know somebody's story, that's going to help me to understand them better. But that takes time. That takes building community, and that takes, we used to say that the biggest problem in the church is that we don't take time to spend time with each other. I mean, it's everything's segmented. We're very close to a couple of different seminaries here, and really theological schools. I mean, Southeastern seminaries, 45 minutes. Duke actually has a school of theology just probably 5 miles from where I'm sitting. Campbell University is not far, and they have a theology school. So I see a lot of young guys coming out of seminary, and I have to really say I've been impressed over the last couple of years. I feel like there is they have a desire to build relationships. At least that's what I've seen here. That I feel like for a couple of decades was kind of lost. I feel like they're kind of recapturing that. We've got our youngest pastor in our association. He just turned 30 the other day. I mean, God is doing some amazing things. And he took a church that was about 40 people, all Caucasian, in the middle of a African American community. Everybody drove in 20 minutes to go to this church. You know what I'm talking about. And so he basically just reintroduced them to the community. They just started getting out and meeting their neighbors and praying for them. And over the last 3 years, the church has transitioned. It's about 40% African American now. The church is like tripled in size, and it was not a some rocket science uh, kind of strategy. It was just a simple strategy. Let's get out, let's meet our neighbors, let's love our neighbors, let's love this community, and I think that kind of you and I know. I mean, he talked a lot about oikos and building that and working with that and so that's actually been an encouragement to me since I've been here. I've got three pastors that I would say are probably under 35 that I'm seeing that same model that's happening with them. So that's been a big encouragement. And I feel like, again, conflict is inevitable, because we are sinful, prideful people. We're gonna have conflict, but I feel like a lot of conflict can be avoided if we would just spend some time with each other and learn about each other. The first thing that pops in my mind, and again, this is, I guess, the seminary trained person is Matthew 18. And that's kind of the biblical prescription for dealing with differences of opinion or conflict. If someone sins against you, go and talk to them, and if they don't listen to you, take somebody with you, and if they don't listen, then bring it before the church. And I mean, there's the order there, and I think that's a great example. I mean, I really do. I feel like that's probably one of the best examples. I had a pastor just the other day who we're in the middle of changing some bylaws, and you want to have conflict, changing bylaws in a local Baptist association, that can really do it. So I had a pastor who called me. We had about an hour conversation, and we disagreed on several things. But I told him, I said, brother, I'm so thankful that you called me and that we talked about this one-on-one. I mean, I think he felt better. I felt better. In fact, he told me before, he said, well, it's obvious that we don't agree on everything. He said, but I do love you and I respect you. And I think, and I felt the same way. And so I think there is something about Matthew 18 that really, helps us to understand that there's a process. Most people are familiar with Romans 8. I have that. It's one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. And I think, we all see where God can take a bad situation and bring something good out of it. And that's one of the things that I do a lot of times when I'm dealing with someone in conflict is, as I set some parameters at the very beginning, I say, look, this is, I would love for us to, this is where we are. This is where we'd like to be. I'd love for us to come out of here and be able to be united, even if we disagree. We can be united for the cause of Christ, but also, try to set some parameters that I pray that both of us, or if we're talking about a large group, that all of us can learn through this process. I had a good friend who used to always say, some people live and learn and some people just live. And so, I think that as we look at conflict, hopefully, maybe you can learn something from this situation that will help you down the road. Maybe, and especially I deal with a lot of pastors. And so I know that, they're dealing with all kinds of conflict. Most of the time they don't call me unless there's a problem. So I say most of the time, a lot of times, so there's generally conflict involved, but I think realizing that this is a learning process, it is a process, and how can we move from point A to point B, and what can we learn along this path that will help us with C and D down the road. So it's funny because you read about the beginnings of computers and technology, and back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and that the idea was we're going to help you do more quicker so you'll have more free time. And the truth is, it seems like it's just the complete opposite. Because, somebody asked me, well, how many hours do you work a week? I said, well, I'm in the office X amount of hours, but I'm out in the field, X amount of hours, but I'm also at home at 9:00 at night and I get a phone call. I'm also at home on Saturday morning at 8:00 and I get a phone call or I get a text, and you're never away. I mean, guys, people in every industry probably go on vacation and you got this little phone and you're, all the way. So I feel like there is that fact that we can't kind of decompress or rest or get away from it on one level, but it also seems like it makes us that much more desiring to get away and have our own time. And so I think that's kind of broken down relationships. I don't, and again, I think there are some people that are doing it and are doing it well. But I mean, as far as just, even getting to know your neighbors and, having them over for, a cookout, or getting to know, some people that you work with. I mean, my wife yesterday had a lady that she's been working with for about 4 or 5 weeks over to the house, and they had coffee and she made some banana bread. And the lady said, well, I can only stay 30 minutes. Well, she stayed 2 hours. And I think she stayed 2 hours because they enjoyed each other's company, but they also enjoyed getting to know each other. And I feel like, to answer your question, no, I don't think we're necessarily equipped, but I am hopeful that we can get there, because I feel like there is a void that people have, that they want to have real friendships and real communications. That's one of the things I see with pastors all the time is pastors tell me, they said, I'm praying for a friend. I'm praying for somebody that I can be myself and get away from and get away from, all the ministry, I don't want to say trappings, but you know what I'm saying. So I feel like probably we're not equipped, but I feel like there's that need there. And I feel like we can help lead people to that. So it's a difference of embracing the here and now and the real life versus embracing the social media world. I mean, you see the best things that people ate. I mean, how many times do people take pictures of their food? I mean, I'm guilty. I've done it. Or you're at the beach and you take pictures and you take sunsets and everything's beautiful. But the truth is, life is not always, a bed of roses. There's ups and downs, but enjoying that journey and having people to communicate with through that is really awesome. I meet with a group of pastors every Wednesday morning, and we met yesterday, and there's about 6 guys. Now, we were practicing social distancing. We were actually in a large fellowship hall with about 7 guys there. And but I mean, it's a time where they can be real, they can be transparent. I mean, there's many times that there's tears, there's many times that there's a lot of laughter. But that's a very healthy thing. And I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that. And I think because of that, there tends to be more conflict. I don't know that I actually saw the program, but a lot of people are probably familiar with that. I think it's been 20 years ago it came out, Band of Brothers or something like that. But that concept, I think, is something that is biblical. and that sense of community that you mentioned earlier, and something that we all need. And sometimes I feel like that could answer a lot of problems if we just had somebody to bounce things off of, or somebody that we could really be ourselves with. Because the truth is, we all live doing the things that we feel like we need to do, and that superficiality that we talked about earlier sometimes tends to reign, and that also, I think, lends itself to conflict.